The sound of a rope tightening around flesh is a memory no one wants to carry, especially not a man who has dedicated his life to preserving the wild. What happens next when the faintest sliver of hope comes from a lion itself? Let's find out. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss emotional, boundary-crossing stories like this. The sky over the Masai Mara National Reserve that day was brilliant and unforgiving. The sun was high, turning the low acacia bushes into distorted ghosts on the dry grass. Kellen, a veteran park ranger, no longer saw the scene's immense beauty. All he felt was the burning of his skin as the rough hemp rope constricted against the tree trunk. The poachers had left him behind after taking his radio and gun. They wanted him to be a chilling warning. Hope was slowly dissolving, giving way to exhaustion and a searing thirst. Kellen closed his eyes, trying to find a moment of peace in the dry wind. Then, something else replaced the sound of the wind. It was a heavy, slow sound sliding through the grass, powerful enough to make the ground seem to tremble slightly. He opened his eyes, and his heart stopped. A massive shadow fell over him, carrying the heat and powerful scent of an apex predator. It was a fully grown male lion, a true king of the Savannah, stopping just a few steps away. Its amber eyes locked onto him. Kellen knew that look, a sharp, cold observation. But he also knew that if this were any ordinary lion, this moment would be the end. In desperation, as he searched for any sign that the beast might spare him, Kellen's eyes swept over its powerful back. Right between the shoulder blades, he saw it, a jagged, white, nearly perfect scar. Kellen's heart pounded for an entirely different reason. He recognized the scar. It wasn't a fighting wound. It was a surgical suture he himself had performed months ago when a lion named Taji was severely injured after a territorial battle. That life-saving act had required Kellen to risk his own life, but it had succeeded. And now, his fiercest patient stood here. That unimaginable bond, a debt between man and beast, had been reawakened, right in the ranger's moment of life and death. In nature, kindness has no monetary value, but Taji was ready to repay a debt the human world often forgets. The recognition came with a wave of chilling relief and a profound shiver. Kellen could barely believe his eyes. That scar, it was not just a line. It was proof of a reckless act and a fateful chance. Kellen distinctly remembered the night he and his team found Taji, the fiercest and most powerful male lion in the Mara, after a bloody territorial clash. The wound was too deep, threatening infection. Kellen, against all rules and his colleagues' advice, decided to perform surgery right there, under the faint light of a flashlight. He had risked his life to touch the wild beast, acting not for law or money, but simply out of a belief in life. Now, Taji stood there, its gaze no longer holding the rage of the injured, but a calm, calculating assessment. The lion shifted its weight, lowering its massive head. Kellen could feel its warm, moist breath skim over his taut skin. The growl rumbling from Taji's huge chest was not a threat, but a deep, resonant sound, as if in contemplation. It carefully nudged the hemp rope knots around Kellen with its muzzle, then recoiled, seemingly reading their complexity. It was an unbelievable moment of nonverbal communication. Kellen tried to speak, a hoarse, almost inaudible sound escaping his dry throat. "It's me, Taji. It's Kellen. You remember me." The lion merely twitched an ear, a tiny sign that it had listened, and then it began to act. And this is when things became extraordinary. Taji started working with incredible precision, entirely opposite to its aggressive hunting instinct. It used its sharp incisors, not its canines, to tug at the rough hemp strands one by one. The process was slow and incredibly difficult, as the knots the poachers used were dead knots, tight and soaked with night dew. Kellen felt a mix of adrenaline and terror. If Taji slipped, one wrong bite could cause a catastrophic injury. But the animal, with a focus that was almost surgical, worked tirelessly. Strand by strand, the hemp was stripped away. The progress was minimal, but Kellen felt a spark of hope blaze in his chest. He saw the determination in Taji's eyes, as if the lion understood it was performing a vital mission. However, that fragile hope was quickly crushed by a new, far greater threat. A loud, insistent sound, like a rolling drum across the savannah, quickly replaced the crackling of the stripping rope. Between two distant acacia trees, a large dust cloud billowed up, followed by massive, dark brown forms, moving with terrifying speed and anger. A herd of Cape buffalo was charging. They are one of Africa's most dangerous species, known for their aggressive nature and willingness to trample anything in their path. The buffalo were approaching, agitated by the unusual noise and the presence of a lion in the open, which they perceived as a threat that needed immediate elimination. Taji instantly stopped its rescue work. It raised its head, its eyes shifting from the knots to the approaching danger. The buffalo's bellows, the thundering of their hooves on the ground, signaled a desperate choice. Must Taji continue saving Kellen or protect them both from frantic herd? This debt of gratitude, it seemed, would demand an exorbitant price. Taji stood before a desperate choice. Complete the rescue and risk being fatally trampled, or defend Kellen and lose his chance for freedom. Kellen's eyes were fixed on the charging buffalo herd, his mind swirling in chaos. Over 100 buffalo with massive curved horns and eyes red with rage, ready to turn any obstacle into mud. They were the embodiment of blind, savage power. Taji did not hesitate. It completely abandoned the not undoing work, a clear demonstration of its priority. The great lion turned, positioning itself as a perfect shield between Kellen, who was helplessly bound to the tree, and the frantic herd. It opened its mouth, not in an angry roar, but a resounding territorial bellow, an unmistakable warning of a protector. This roar shook the air, causing the buffalo to momentarily flinch, like a wave stopped by a stone wall. But the buffalo's aggression quickly overcame their fear. The lead bull, an old male with large, chipped horns, lowered its head and began a charge. The fight unfolded in a whirlwind of dust and violence. Taji was not hunting. It was purely defending and protecting. It used its immense weight to hold its position, employing its claws and entire body to push back the buffalo, trying to breach the defense line. Kellen watched in horror, his heart hammering in his chest. Each buffalo thrust could break Taji's bones, yet the lion stood firm, upholding the invisible promise forged by the scar on its back. Taji fought with incredible focus. It wasn't just protecting Kellen, it was protecting an act of kindness that had saved its life. Finally, with a mighty shoulder heave, Taji knocked the lead bull off balance, disrupting the herd's charge. The buffalo, sensing the resistance was too great and unwilling to risk further, began to turn, slowly retreating toward the further reaches of the savannah. A fragile victory. Taji, panting, with a deep scratch on its flank, slowly turned back toward Kellen. Its massive body was exhausted, its chest heaving. It gently nudged its muzzle against Kellen's cheek, a gesture confirming the danger was temporarily gone. Then, it turned its head, staring at the ropes, and then at Kellen, seemingly posing a silent question. What do we do next? Taji's confusion was clear. It had done everything it could with raw strength and skill, but the rope's core was too thick to bite through without injuring Kellen. In the moment he faced the pleading look of his savior, Kellen regained his composure. He understood Taji needed a different solution. Kellen began to act. He used the back of his right hand, where the rope was slightly looser, rubbing it forcefully and repeatedly against the rough acacia bark. The skin on his hand tore and bled, but he ignored the pain, focusing only on fraying the hemp fibers. He did it slowly, trying to create a small, vulnerable spot. Taji watched intently, seemingly learning. When Kellen nodded towards the worn rope, then looked directly into the lion's amber eyes, a perfect communication occurred. Taji understood. It lowered its head again, taking a deep breath. This time, it bit down decisively and powerfully on the weakened spot. Snap! The rope finally broke. Kellen tumbled to the side, his body hitting the grass hard. He was free, but too weak to stand. The greatest danger was over, but this story of loyalty was not yet finished. Kellen fell to the ground. The dry grass was softer than the hard tree trunk, but the impact still jarred his whole body. He was free, but in that first moment, the primal human reflex won out. He instinctively crawled backward, trying to create distance from the massive creature that had just saved his life. It was a hard-to-control instinct. Taji was still a lion, a perfect killing machine. But Kellen quickly stopped. He saw Taji just standing there, with no sign of aggression or demand. The lion was only breathing heavily, its thick mane dusty and sweaty from the battle with the buffalo herd. In Taji's eyes was not the anticipation of prey, but a serene and quiet evaluation, as if it were waiting for Kellen to regain his footing. Taji's patience dissolved every remaining fear in Kellen. He stared at Taji, realizing something profound. This lion was not acting on instinct, but on an extraordinary memory and loyalty. It had risked its life to shield him from the buffalo, and had used its intelligence to help him break free. This was not merely a wild beast. It was a partner, a protector. Kellen struggled to sit up, leaning his back against the acacia tree. His body ached, his arm was bleeding, but his spirit was soaring. He looked at Taji from head to paw and saw the exhaustion clearly marked on its face, especially the scratch on its flank inflicted by the buffalo. Taji had done too much. In that quiet moment, Kellen felt a gratitude too deep for words. He slowly extended his injured hand. It was a risky gesture, an offer of peace and thanks. Taji responded astonishingly. The lion, the king of the Masai Mara, slowly lowered its head, with absolute trust, showing no sign of defense. Kellen gently placed his hand on the thick mane, exactly where the lumpy surgical scar was on Taji's back. He scratched lightly. It was a moment of connection that transcended all species barriers. No words were needed, no laws, just the final emotional acknowledgement of a debt paid and a bond forged. Taji allowed the action, as if accepting the only reward it needed, recognition from the man who had saved its life. After a few seconds, Taji gently inhaled, then slowly raised its head. It looked at Kellen one last time with its deep amber eyes, then turned its back. With a slow but majestic stride, Taji began to move across the savannah, melting into the golden sunlight. It did not look back. It demanded nothing more. It left Kellen there, safe and utterly speechless, facing the truth that kindness had created an alliance no science could fully explain. Kellen would soon report the poachers, who were eventually brought to justice. But his real reward was not the legal victory, but the confirmation that compassion is a force that exists even in the wildest and darkest corners of nature. The story of Taji and Kellen is not just luck. It is a powerful lesson that kindness, when given unconditionally, is never forgotten. As Taji faded into the bushes and the intense sunlight of the Masai Mara, Kellen was finally able to stand. His body trembled with exhaustion and adrenaline, but his mind was crystal clear. He had been rescued, not by weapons or technology, but by an invisible covenant etched into the memory of a wild animal. The moment Kellen scratched Taji's scar was the emotional pinnacle of the entire experience, a confirmation that humanity is not exclusive to humans. We, modern humans, are constantly skeptical. We doubt the intentions of others. We doubt the power of simple kindness. We treat kindness as a transaction, something that needs to be proven, something that needs to be measured. But Taji, a creature governed by the instinct for survival, taught Kellen and all of us a clear lesson. Empathy is not a luxury. It is a powerful tool for survival. Taji remembered Kellen risked everything to save its life, and it responded by risking everything to save Kellen's life. We often think that loyalty is only found in the small circle of family or friends. But this story challenges that view. It invites us to look at the world on a grander scale. Kellen sowed a seed of compassion in a place where no sweet fruit was expected, and Taji delivered an abundant harvest. Now, ask yourself, If a lion can remember and repay kindness months later at the cost of confronting a ferocious buffalo herd, then what have we, rational beings, done with the kindness we have received? Have we forgotten it or repaid it in our daily lives? This story is not just about a rescue. It is a gentle but powerful reminder for us to build bridges instead of walls. Taji and Kellen created a survival alliance. We can do the same in our communities, in our work, and in our families. Find a relationship, a neighbor, or a project you have neglected, and apply Taji's principle. Fierce protection is born from a memory of kindness. Kellen eventually returned. The poachers were apprehended, but his greatest reward was not the legal victory, but the validation of his life's meaning. That connection, trust, and compassion are immeasurable forces on the journey of survival. If this story has given you a dose of hope, a renewed belief in the possibility of connection beyond all barriers, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can create the most extraordinary things. See you in the next chapter of the wild adventure, where compassion always finds its way.